Hey, shout out folks, it's Bob the Old Rucker. So it's just a quick intro before we get into the show with Charlie and Nathan. That was a fun show to do. It's the first one we've done like that. Charlie I've known for many years and is just a real genuine person. And I know this, I don't think he'd be too crazy about me saying this, but he's going to hear it anyway because it's going on the show. If there was somebody I would look up to as an example of what a sponsor should be, he is that type of guy. So those of you out there that, are looking to work with people and wonder what sponsorship's all about, I really would listen and hone in on Charlie. He's just a genuine guy. As far as Nathan goes, I've just recently met him. I can say that I can tell when somebody's really doing the deal or when they're tap dancing. And Nathan is really one of those guys that is soaking it up. And you'll hear that in the show. This is important because a lot of us kind of forget that when it comes to illicits, I'm talking about alcohol and drugs, we are literally in a fight for our lives. And when we slip from the reality that we are addicts and alcoholics, we're setting ourselves up for imminent failure. So I hope you enjoy the show because it was really fun to do. And like I said, I really like these guys. And, give us some feedback. You can reach us on the show at shoutoutfromthepit.com. All the information's there. And, of course, I'll repeat it during the show. So as always, I pray you're having an outstanding American day. And now on to the show. Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker coming at you raw and uncensored. Welcome to Shout Out from the Pit, where we bring stories and topics designed to add to your toolbox as you trudge the road to happy destiny. So joining us today are a couple of friends of mine, Charlie and Nathan, and we're talking about recovery sponsorship. I'm going to let them give you a shout out. I think you're going to hear more from these guys in the future. We throw that word tribe out quite a bit. Charlie has been a member of the tribe for years, and Nathan is coming aboard, and you're going to learn more about both of these guys during this show. So, Charlie, give us a shout out.
Everybody, I am Charlie Newth, and I am an alcoholic.
All right. Welcome, Charlie.
Hey, guys, I'm Nathan, and I'm an alcoholic.
Right on. And I'm obviously grateful for y'all taking the time out of your day to be here. Both of you guys are incredibly busy. For the listening audience, not to break anonymity, but of course, Charlie just gave his last name. That's on you. You're pretty open about your recovery. In fact, I'm jumping off script here for a second. I have been listening to you over the years. And Charlie, when we started this podcast, you're one of the guys on the list that I've wanted to do a show with because your insight and your delivery is pretty welcoming. And, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but when somebody comes across less than genuine or they're harsh or whatever, it kind of just turns me off. We can see right through that. But you're not like that. You just have this innate concern for everybody. You think about what you're going to say. You deliver it very succinctly and concise. And that's why I texted you and told you I wanted you to do something for me here in a little bit. But before we get to that, let me just say that I'm very grateful that you came on the show. And I would like for you to come on, more often to do some of these table chats that we do that you've listened to on the show and just, jump in with the tribe and do some of these insights. Nathan, as you're new into recovery. We're going to talk about that in a minute. As we grow and you grow with this program, I would, like you to consider as time goes on, to come back and check with us and tell us how your process and your progress is going. Again, we're here for folks who deliver a message of hope. And there's a lot of folks that, get a hold of us and tell us what they think, how they feel, and they're grateful for hearing that they're not the only ones out there that are trying to, crack the ice on their recovery. So, there's that, right? Okay. So, since you've listened to the show, you know that we're incredibly serious. We don't like to laugh on this show. So try to keep it very serious and monotone and as boring as possible. So people will flip the station to something else. Not. All right. So anything goes. No, don't hold anything back. Again, we're raw and uncensored, but as you know, we try to keep it kind of G. So when we get into experience, strength, and hope, we can leave out specificities It's not really necessary. Everybody's got their own worst horror story, but that as best as you can, just kind of give us a roundabout way. And I'm going to lead the witness here as we go. And you've been around just long enough to know what I'm talking about there. But I want to start off with a quick story, and it kind of has a lot to do with what we're doing here today. And you guys might have heard this before, but there was this little boy that would run home from school every day, little Carlos, and because there was this guy that was always picking on him, beating on him. And, he would run by this filling station every day. And this guy that ran the station, his name was Jack. And Jack would watch him and knew what was going on. And one day he stopped little Carlos and pointed out what he knew was obvious. Like, you've got to stand up to this guy. And, as the story goes, Carlos wasn't too crazy about standing up to somebody that was a lot larger than him. But Jack encouraged him basically to do what Carlos thought was impossible. And he stood up to the guy. Now, the results of that are really not relevant, but what is relevant is Jack encouraged Carlos that he could survive a very difficult childhood and become something that God had intended him to become. And we know Carlos is Chuck Norris. All Chuck needed was a mentor. And that's a lot like sponsorship. People come into the recovery journey and they just need somebody to help them walk the dog to get started. And once they get started, and they're like that clown in a circus that's spinning a plate, once that clown can get somebody else to spin their own plate, then he's accomplished his job. And Charlie, that's kind of how I see you and Nathan. Two men that have productive lives, that have responsibilities, that have families. And Nathan, you being new to the program, how long have you been in the program now?
So I tried the program back in 2018 for a few months, not take it seriously, but I just got back into the program 3 months.
Okay. So you're
3 months.
So you're not really a retread because you tried it, but it wasn't really for you. So a retread to us is somebody that's been working the program for a while and then bounces. You are coming in now, the program kind of serious.
Seriously.
So let's go there. Let's actually, before we get there, I don't want to forget to do this. Charlie, I have heard you do this several times, and I want to catch it on the air. Again, I see you as somebody that's very genuine, very kind. Love your wife to death. Daisy is just the bomb. Daisy, shout out to you. Thank you for all you do for Charlie and for the tribe and members of the recovery journey with your fantastic baking and cooking. Side note, she's looking to do her food truck. That's coming when?
Any day now.
Okay. All right. We've got to give a shameless plug to that when it does come, and I have no problems doing that. If you're okay with it.
Absolutely.
Oh man, I want her to be incredibly successful. Not just because she's fantastic at what she does, it's because she is a godsend to you, and you can speak to that on your own. Again, we're raw and uncensored. But you've got a really amazing journey. So someday I want to do a show just with you to talk about your experience, strength, and hope. It's just an incredible story. But what I'd like you to do now, you have a great way of explaining the obsession and the allergy in the DNA that I've actually used. So can you, if you don't mind, we're going to sidetrack for a sec. Can you go down that road with us and just...
I'll try to. It's seems like it's a little bit different every time I say it because I just speak from the heart. You talked earlier about being genuine and everything, and about me, kind of showing my anonymity. I do that because I want to be transparent, and I think sometimes we take our anonymity as kind of to a fault where maybe somebody can't reach out to us and can't find us when they're in need. So I don't mind sharing this with any and everybody. I've been given a life today that I'm extremely grateful for, and I want to help it to find the happiness that I found as I can. So, but when you talk about the allergy of the body, how I learned about it when I was let out of the straitjacket on the psych ward at the Baptist Hospital, October the 10th, 2010. I was in the room and I had a medical professional start talking about the disease of addiction, about how it was an allergy of the body and the obsession of the mind. For the first time hearing a medical professional talk about that, I realized that it wasn't just a problem It was a medical condition that I've been afflicted with. And more importantly than anything was he gave me hope that there was a way out for me. I knew at that moment that my life was about to change. I didn't speak about it for years because I was afraid I was going to jinx it. But I could take you still to this day to that exact spot I was at, that moment that I first had hope. And I've realized since then how important hope is. And I've spoken with other gentlemen about it, and everybody that I have spoken to that has any sobriety at all can tell you that moment that they first had hope. And it's really brought it to light how important hope really is. So I think it's important that when I share that I offer someone else hope, because it meant the world to me at that time when I was desperate, when I thought my life was pretty much in ruins. And here I am today, and I'm living the best life I've ever lived. So, but when he talked about the allergy of the body, I have to understand things for my own self to satisfy myself. So I looked up the term or the definition of the word allergy, because he said I'm allergic to alcohol. And I'm thinking, how can I be allergic to it? I'm drinking it every day. And so when I looked up the definition of an allergy is an abnormal reaction to any food, beverage, or substance. And my body metabolizes alcohol differently than the average person. So my body has an abnormal reaction to alcohol. And what it does in my body, best I've understood it, is it creates when I put alcohol in my body, it creates a chemical called acetone. And my body craves acetone. So when I put alcohol in my body, it generates acetone, which generates this craving. And I've got to have another drink. And then I put another drink in me, and that craving just intensifies. And I got to have another. And then by the time I'm going to bed in the evening, I need a drink worse when I'm going to bed than I did before I started. I can remember many nights on my way to the bedroom, stopping at the refrigerator to get another beer on my way to bed because I needed a drink so badly at that point. So that described the allergy to me, and it helped me to understand. It helped me to realize that I'm born with this body that reacts to alcohol differently than most people. So it didn't make me feel at that point anymore like it was a lack of willpower or a lack of any type of power. It wasn't that I quit blaming myself for drinking so much, and I could blame the condition that my body was born. Then when we talk about the obsession of the mind, that gets a lot of deep, and I think that can be different for a lot of people. But my best description of how the obsession works for me or worked for me was a Sunday morning. I woke up, I look into the refrigerator, and I tried to make Sunday my sober up day for a lot of reasons that my story, but my job was about to fire me. So I thought, well, if I don't drink on Sunday, I'll be able to make it to work on Mondays. And things will be okay. And that worked. It did work out well. And I did that for over a year. There was a Sunday morning I woke up hungover. I look in the refrigerator, and there's 3 beers in there. And I said to myself that if you open the first one and drink it, you're going to end up drinking all 3 of them. You're not going to be able to stop. You're going to go to wherever you can go to find more alcohol. You're going to drink all day long. You're going to be drunk. You're not going to be able to go to work the next day, and they're going to fire you. And I reached in there and I grabbed the first beer and I opened. That was the obsession. And what I just described to you is exactly what happened. I knew what was about to happen, but I could not reach in there and grab that beer because my mind obsessed over that drink to the point that I could raise no mental defense against that first drink. And then I triggered the allergy and it's over. I did exactly what I described to you. The next day I couldn't make it to work and they fired me. A job I had of almost 20 years.
Wow, what a great explanation of the obsession and the allergy. I mean, we read about it in the literature, but the way they express it just makes it so much more clear to me. So that's why I go there. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so Nathan, welcome to this recovery journey. So we're going to kind of zero in on you for a minute. And you had said that 2018 you gave it a shot. So this is great for me because I know a little bit more about Charlie than obviously I don't know anything about you. So other than meeting you, and just want to say that right off the bat, you exude a comfortable feeling. So that's a plus for you. So you come in right away without being standoffish or approachable, because I like to say hi to everybody. And, a lot of folks that are new and they're real nervous. I accept that. I expect that. I was a little taken back that when I first met you, I almost felt like you had been around a while, only to find out you were just starting your journey. I'm like, this is cool. Okay. So I think you're going to do real well. And especially since you said you had a taste of this, 7 years ago. So why don't you, if you don't mind, give us a snapshot view of not today, but maybe your history. I don't know. Tell us who Nathan is and give us a little view of what it was like for you growing up.
Absolutely. So kind of my story, short version. Typical. Every story that young people have is wanting to be cool, wanting to be a part, wanting to have that courage and self-esteem problems and issues as a younger person. To be able to get around people and have friends and be accepted. And when I was younger, I was raised very strict in church. And so kind of my whole life, I was sheltered from the world and things like that because my parents were very religious and very strict. So I was never susceptible to those things until I got into my teenage years. And when I got into where I was going out into the world and for myself, I was kind of just searching for something and wanting to be accepted by other people. And I was trying to run. Really, at that point in my life, I was trying to run from the church because I'd been raised that so long. I didn't want that for me, and I wanted, as far as now, I'll talk about this later on, but it's my relationship with God now is for me. It's not for my parents. The relationship I have at this point in my life at 33 rather than 17 is I've found it for me. And at that point in my life at 17, I was running from God because I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and at that point in my life, I really started dabbling in things as far as, drinking and stuff. I'd never been around that my whole life. And I wanted to kind of just see what it was about. And I did that at that point in my life, just started trying alcohol and not really drugs at that point, but just alcohol. And I liked the way it made me feel. It gave me confidence. It gave me, made you feel like Hercules, you could do anything. And I was able to talk to women and girls, which I was always scared at that point in my life. And so that was just a taste, at that point in my life, that was just a taste. I really wasn't, I would say, an alcoholic at that point, but I just liked the way that made me feel. And so anytime I would get into a situation where I felt that, I needed some confidence or I needed a boost, that's what I would go to. I would, hey, let me get a drink before I do this. And then I would be able to talk to people or talk to that girl I wanted to talk to or give me the courage, at that point. And it just kind of slowly progressed from there. I got into my 20s, became a police officer when I was 21. And that job at 21, I wasn't married then. So I had kind of more freedom. So I was able to do my job and then basically, party, reasonably go party and stuff with my friends and stuff and not really have any repercussions from that. But back in that point in my life, I got married when I was 22 to someone way older than me and just kind of slowly progressed with that. She had problems with alcoholism. And so that marriage failed, obviously. And then it slowly progressed from there. During that point in my life, alcohol became number one. I lost a wife. My job was I was starting to struggle in my job and eventually lost that job because of that, So I worked for that job as a police officer until I was about 26. And then I moved to Arkansas. I lost my job there, moved to Arkansas. My parents had moved here. And I kind of moved to be closer to them just to have some support. And that was back in 2018. And so when I first moved to Arkansas, my mom had mentioned it to me. She's like, hey, why don't you just try AA? She's like, obviously the church is, you're not wanting to go to church. You're not wanting to do this. She's like, maybe AA would help, the alcoholism and the alcohol. So I went and visited the F Street group for the first time in 2018. I'm not really sure when then. But that's when I said I didn't take it seriously. I went and I got into the room and I was like, man, it's just a bunch of old guys drinking coffee, talking about their stories and something I couldn't relate to, I felt like at that point. And so I did have a sponsor, Chuck. I'm not even sure, he's not there anymore. But he was my sponsor for a while. And, I did it. I went through the steps for a little while. And then I didn't take it seriously. I started ghosting him. I wouldn't answer his calls or I wouldn't call him. Charlie, he gets on me a lot about calling him every day now.
Oh yeah.
It's very important. So, I did that, and I eventually just stopped showing up, and I thought I had it whooped. I was like, well, I'm good. I'm not drinking heavy anymore. And I kind of thought I had it taken care of. I thought I was cutting back on my drinking, so it'd be fine, and progressed from there until I went 7 more years, and the drinking never stopped. And thank the Lord, I eventually found how I started going to church again, and found my wife that I'm married to now, and she's a very good person, and she's helped me. We have a daughter. She just turned 3, and all those things in my life, the good things in my life that I have not lost yet, that have made me, and me, and just the suffering of the alcoholism, and then having those people around me that are suffering with me. At just some point, it's only been a few months. I mean, I'm right under 2 months of sobriety, and at those, there's one point in those last 3 months that I just got back into AA. I went to a speaker night at the F Street. Just one. It was the last Friday of every month they have a speaker night, and just so happened that last speaker night they had, Mr. Charlie was there, and he got up there and started telling his story. And me and Charlie are in the same trade. We do the same exact trade, and he got up there and went. And what really stuck at first, because I wasn't really listening too good, and then he started talking about he did heating and air, and I do heating and air. So I was like, wow, let me listen up good now. And just relating to his story, and then just the way he came across, like you said earlier, the way he came across is just completely honest and humble, and just told it in a way that you believe. Because us as alcoholics, we kind of read people pretty good. I think we can just read the BS when somebody's talking. And when he was telling us all of his experience, strength, and hope, it really hit me in the heart. And that Friday, I didn't do good. I went home and got drunk that night. And the next morning I called Charlie, or I think it was that night or the next Saturday. I can't remember that. I think it was the next week. I got drunk on that Friday night, and I called him that next morning, and so he gave me his number, and I said, man, I'm tired of doing this. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. Like it was early in the morning on Saturday, like 8 or 10 o'clock. I can't remember. And I said, man, are you in a good spot right now? I was like, yeah, I'm at the house. And, he's like, have you been to a meeting today? I know. I went to a 12 o'clock meeting that day. And then ever since, I've called him, I think every day, probably not every day, but, he took me on as a sponsee. He's been pouring into me this last few weeks, and I really appreciate it. And I'm glad to be here. I have a lot to learn. I really don't know. I'm kind of rambling now, but that's kind of my story. And I just appreciate you having me on, and I'm glad to be here with Charlie. He's a great man.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for that snapshot. You know what a New York cop is?
I do not.
Bang, bang, stop or I'll shoot. So I pulled a New York cop on you a little bit ago. And I'm going to redact that raw and uncensored, so it's going out. I made an assumption. My bad. I didn't realize you had got that far in the program. I thought maybe because I didn't ask questions, I assumed that you had just popped in, checked out AA, said, "Nah, it's not for me." I didn't realize that you had actually worked with Chuck. So you could be classified as retread. So, okay. I have a couple of questions for you. So, on things that you said right here. As a police officer, which I didn't know, so thanks for sharing that. That's pretty cool. You had 4 years as an officer, right?
Almost 7.
Almost 7. Okay. So, I got a GED, so you got to talk slow with me. So, there you have 7 years. You had to have come across domestics and situations where you knew what alcoholism was, or at least an alcoholic was. All right. So somewhere in there, I don't know when, I'm just asking, when do you think that you looked in the mirror and said, Nathan, you're an alcoholic? When do you think that happened? I mean, by how old were you?
It happened pretty much the day I woke up and I knew I had lost my job, because I would go to people's houses all the time. I mean, every shift you would deal with someone either on drugs or drunk or something like that. But at that point in my life, I was like, I can go home and I can control it. I can drink and be fine. I can go home and pass out on my couch. I'm not beating my wife. I'm not getting arrested for domestic abuse. So until I actually started losing things, I think that's when it really hit me. And that job meant everything to me at that point in my life. That's all I had left. I lost my wife. I was 26 years old, that meant a lot to me. As far as my life at that point, I totally separated everything from work to my life. And Charlie, we talked about this the other day, kind of like everything in my professional life was perfect. I had all the accolades because I was a good cop. I had, all that stuff in my life was perfect. But in my personal life, it was total rotten. It's like looking at the apple and turning the apple on the other side decayed, so.
It's a good visual.
But when I knew that I had a problem is that day, I mean, I knew it was coming too, because I woke up, I basically passed out in my truck, and they found me in my truck. And so they took me to the hospital, and I woke up and the guys from my job were there. And I'm like, oh, I really messed up this time. And
my goodness.
Woke up and that was it. I was like, yep, I think I have a problem. So
okay. Wow. Okay.
That's the raw version there.
No, it's great. That's great. Sometimes what do you call that, Charlie? Hitting bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing you said that struck me. So you were raised in a Christian rigid environment, yet your mom said try AA. So how did she know about AA?
So when my mom was 13, her dad was killed in a car wreck. So her mom, after some time, got remarried, and her husband, which is my grandfather that I've known my whole life, was married to an alcoholic, his ex-wife. And so during that, he was part of, I guess, his Al-Anon, living with an alcoholic. I'm not sure. So my grandpa was part of that, and he would talk to her about that and stuff, and I think she knew of that, but really I think ultimately is because she knew where I was at, how I was raised, and I wasn't trying to stay in the church. And like if the church wasn't working, what else was there? And she knew that Alcoholics Anonymous was, not related specifically right to our religion, So she was just trying to help. That's all I can say, And she didn't know much about it, but she knew that give it a shot and it may help me,
I can't help thinking, and Charlie, you can inject any time. This is just a table chat. So I can't help thinking how God had a plan a long time ago, and, with your grandparents meeting and all the stuff they went through. And of course your mom, learning from that. And then that, obviously that information is in the back of her head. And then her baby boy is running this situation, and she's like, boom. It's just, God works in mysterious ways, right? Wow. Charlie, thoughts?
When you share that, it reminds me of what I always say is my favorite speaker. It talks about his mom, and she was on her deathbed, went to make a final amends with him. And as he's there, kneeled beside her bed, she asked him, she said, he's just like, Mom, I'm sorry. That's all he could say. She said, promise me that you will stay with the AA, because they were the answer to her.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, that's moving.
It is.
Okay, so you're working on the 90 days now, and I maybe I'm going to back up before I go to this question. So a lot of people wrestle with this. Charlie and I have been around long enough that we've heard a lot. There's always something new we can learn. But I know that there are folks out there that, I'm just going to say it, God can heal you. Just lay it before the Lord, man, and he's just going to take it away. I don't know what you're thinking about that, but you said that you actually are involved. You have a relationship with God today. So why do you go to AA then?
Because it's people that deal with alcohol. The people at my church do not. That's how I feel. And it's one of the things I'm working on the 4th step right now, and I have resentments, and some of them seem petty, but they are resentment. And I've had resentments from people at church, even pastors. And the resentment is that they think some of them do. They think that it's just a snap of your fingers and everything's back to normal, But if it was that easy, everybody would be sober and we wouldn't have AA, And that's what Charlie told me the other day. He's like, what did you say, Charlie, the other day about that? I can't remember how you worded it, but basically the same thing. If it was just a fix all to go and just say a prayer, then that we wouldn't be here. So I have a spiritual relationship with God, but I need AA because that helps me be around people that are like me, that can give me what church cannot, and that's their experience, strength, and hope. And that's why I keep coming to AA. And this time that I've came, I'm working it. I'm not perfect at it. I can say that. I'm not going to be perfect. but I'm trying the best I can do. As Charlie says, today, right now, this Thursday, this is what I'm trying to do right now, the best I can, to do it today. And as far as the church thing, I love God and I love my church, but I love AA. So that's why I'm here.
When you were asking what I said, I think what I was saying that day was church is important to me as well. It's one of the tools that I use in my life today, as well as sobriety, just life. But what's important to add to that is church alone and prayer alone does not change my life. It's the action I take. Well, faith without works is dead. I can go to church every day of the week, but if I don't take the appropriate action when I leave church, my life doesn't change. So my story behind that, my real life story, how I apply that to my life, how it finally made sense to me was, I used to do heating and air work in a lot of the larger churches here in Central Arkansas, and I had this idea that the bigger the church, the more God could hear me. So I used to go to these big churches, and I'd go down to the altar, and I would just get on my knees, and I would beg God to take the drink away from me. And this one particular day, I'm at Summer Road Church of Christ. I'm down at the altar. I'm begging God to take the drink away from me. I'm crying my eyes out. I get up from off my knees. I go sit in one of the pews, and I'm just I lay down, and I'm in the fetal position. I'm just begging God to take it away from me. And I mean it more than I've ever meant it in my life. But my life doesn't change. And then I come into this program, and my sponsor suggested, when I asked him to sponsor me, that night I go home, and if I make it home without a drink, to get on my knees and say thank you. And I assured him, I said, man, I wish that worked like that for me. I have given that my all. And I said, unfortunately, it doesn't work for me. I wish it did. I said, I'm glad it works for you, but it just doesn't work for me. He said, do it anyway. And I did. And my life started to change. So what is the difference in saying a prayer and meaning it with every fiber of my being, and then the difference from that and saying a prayer and have absolutely no faith that it's going to work? The difference was the action I took after the prayer. I'm begging God to take it from me, and I mean it with every fiber of my being, and I get up off my knees, and I go out and I get a drink or a drug or whatever it was I wanted, and I expect my life to change. It doesn't work that way. I can come in here and I can say a prayer and have absolutely no faith it's going to work, but I don't pick up the drink or the drug a day at a time. My life changed. And I never will forget, one day I'm driving to work, and I realized I had been 7 days without a drink. And at that moment, I knew that there was something working in my life that wasn't working in my life 7 days ago. I had to, and at that moment, I started to build faith. God was working.
That's great. Okay, So Nathan, in the short time that you have been on this new journey, this go around, what have you learned about yourself?
I've learned I'm an alcoholic.
Okay,
that we are the most dishonest people there are. And we lie more to ourselves than actually people we talk to. Because we can put on the front, we can put on this facade around everybody, and everybody will believe you. But inside, the rottenness inside. So that's really where I feel like I'm at. I'm noticing it, and I'm ready to get it out of me, and I'm ready to stick to, trying every day and not giving up so easily, which is I've done for so long. And for my family too. Obviously, I have a young daughter and a young wife too. We've only been married 5 years, and so we're young in our relationship still. But ultimately, me, as far as sobriety for me, I've got to do it for myself first. It's almost like salvation too. Like I say that, you can't get saved for your family. You got to be saved yourself. You got to live for the Lord and live in sobriety for yourself first, or you'll end up again doing what you were doing. So that's just kind of where I'm at. I'm really young, so I don't really know what to say a lot of times because I don't know. I don't have that experience, and so I like to kind of listen, try to listen a lot, and especially in the groups when we're sharing and stuff. If it's a topic that I really don't have much in yet, I don't want to talk. I'm going to listen. We had a group Monday night that was about our past wreckage, and I have a lot of that, it's so certain things right now in sobriety, I really don't have much to say. I just know that I need to be around you guys and let y'all kind of pour into me. That way in a few years or later down the road, I can help someone else, by my experience as well.
Nathan and Charlie would agree with me. That's called wisdom. That's, hey, there's audience members out there right now that are listening to this that are also young, and they're soaking in what you're saying. And my brief caveat would be, it is okay to listen. That is a wonderful gift. Charlie, you had used the word hope earlier. That hope is what keeps people from, to continue to come back, and faith, and you just demonstrated both of them. Charlie, thoughts before we go on break?
Yeah, I want to share a little bit on what Nathan talked about feeling comfortable sharing. I remember I was in this program for a little while, and I used to try to share in these meetings, and I wanted to share as wisdom like I heard other people sharing. Like so many people in these rooms, they share, and you absorb so much of their wisdom, and I wanted to be like that. So I'm sharing, and I'm trying to sound as smart as I can sound. Which is not very smart of me.
I've been there, brother. I've been there.
And so, I'm leaving meetings and I'm bashing myself for the things I share. And so I talked to my sponsor about it finally. And he said, well, just don't share. I didn't think about that, thought I had to share every time I was called on. And that's not the truth. And so then I just listened for a while. And then after just listening for a little while, God revealed something to me. Quit trying to impress people with your wisdom and just share your life. Share what's on your heart, what's really you for exactly what it is. Don't try to make it more or less. Just share your life with these people. And the first time I did that, the meeting was over. Somebody walked up to me and they said, man, I really appreciate what you had to share. And so from then on, it just made it much easier for me to share with people. Because I'm just telling you what happened in my life. I don't have to make a story up. I don't have to try to remember what I said before because it's etched in there. I know exactly what my life is like. I know how to tell you what happened. I know what to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. And I love to do that.
Yeah. Good insight. Okay, we're going to take a small break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Shout Out from the Pit. This is Bob the Old Rucker, and joining me again today, we have Charlie and Nathan. We're actually going to get to the topic now, which is sponsorship. And I'm going to start this off with just asking Charlie straight up, what does sponsorship mean to you?
At its core, to me, sponsorship in AA means to walk someone through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous to help them build a relationship with the God of their understanding. So, I'm a firm believer that this book of Alcoholics Anonymous was the divine hand of God, was part of them writing the book. I don't believe that any one man could write something on his own that has been so instrumental to so many people's recovery in the rooms and outside the rooms. It touches people that aren't even in the rooms, as well as those that are in. And when I look at it, nowhere in that book that describe how not to drink, but it describes how to build a relationship with God. That's what the steps are designed to do. And when you work those steps to the best of your ability, build a relationship with God. And as a result of that, you don't find it necessary to drink.
Okay. What does bad sponsorship sound like to you? What is bad sponsorship?
That's an interesting question. For me, a bad sponsor would be someone who hasn't worked the steps, not practicing the principles of AA in their life, is a living example of the steps, not just someone who's trying to educate you on the steps, that actually are living the steps. Someone that possibly doesn't really care about you, I care about Nate. I love the guy. So it's easy for me to walk him through the steps and to be a sponsor to him because, he's younger than I am. He feels kind of like a son. So I care about his well-being. I want him to be happy. I want him to have what I've been. So if you have somebody that doesn't really care about you, doesn't listen to you, doesn't want to get to know you, maybe that's bad.
That was a great answer. I've been to a lot of sponsorship workshops, and obviously been around long enough. I've sponsored a few people. So one thing I noticed that we all have in common is the belief that we need to take them through the steps. It's more than just a belief. I think it's a requirement. I think what makes things a little awkward is when when a sponsor steps out of his lane and goes down a route that probably is not invited to do. In a vague type of an example would be, since I'm sponsoring you, I'm kind of making this up on the fly. I'm, without saying it, I'm a guru. So sit down, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. And I need access to your bank accounts. I wouldn't be saying this if I hadn't heard it. I need to track you on your phone. That kind of stuff just weirds me out. If you were that type of person, Charlie, I know you're not, but if you were, you wouldn't be on the show right now because that's a bad examples. And when I meet people like that, I just can't help thinking, what are you, Dave Koresh? So I like your answer. Now I'd like to ask you, because everybody has their own specificities, and of course we want to get them through the 12 steps. What does is there a Charlie process? Because you've sponsored enough people, have you? You've should I say, you've grown. We all grow. We make our mistakes. It's like our firstborn child. Oh my gosh, the mistakes we made with that one compared to the third one. I know how you boil the pacifier every time it drops. And by the time I got to the third kid, I just pick it up, wipe it off, and stick it back in the face. So we grow as a sponsor. What now, where you're at in your sobriety and your journey, what does a Charlie sponsorship process look like?
For me today, because you're right, it has evolved over my years of being in the program. For me today, is about first giving the person hope, because I believe that with that hope, it makes them want to walk through this program. And second bottom line is to build a relationship with God. That's the foundation. Everything else grows from there.
Okay. Okay.
Now, let me add to that a little bit. Okay. I think today also walking them through the steps in a timely manner is very important. You don't need to procrastinate. It's a balance. You need to take your time so you can do it thoroughly, but you also don't need to be procrastinating. It's a balance that I try to find, and I can't say that I've never sponsored any two people the same way. It's a personal relationship with that sponsee, just like it is a personal relationship that I have with God.
So when it comes to sponsorship, whose program is it? Is it the sponsors or the sponsee?
If I had to answer that, I'd say it's our program.
Just pass the test. Okay. I'm going to switch gears to you, Nathan. All right. So you had mentioned, and I know Chuck, I haven't seen him in a while. So Chuck, if you're out there, come home. We miss you. So, and that doesn't mean he might have moved or something.
I actually talked.
Oh, did you?
A few months ago, he was in Alabama. His mother's really sick.
Oh.
So he's not been in Arkansas for a while.
Oh.
He's been in Alabama with her, I guess. So hope to see him again.
Chuck was somebody that I bent a lot of ear with. I mean, we're going back many, many years. And unfortunately, I know so many people, you'll meet so many people. If I don't see them after a while, they're just kind of like a memory that'll pop in every once in a while. And Chuck, no offense to Chuck, that's one of them. But he's got, as far as, I'm glad you said that, because when I knew him, he had a great program. He's one of those guys I would like to sit and chat with him and his wife. Just really good people. So, Chuck aside, when you came in 2018, the word sponsor was thrown out. Now, what went through your head at that time? You hear the word sponsor. Just take it from there.
I had no clue. I mean, honestly, I had no clue what it meant. All I knew was somebody that was going to help guide you through Alcoholics Anonymous. And I can't really, it's been so long ago. But the first few weeks I went, he was the one that he kind of came up to me and was like, hey, where you from? Just trying to get to know me. And so I just kind of gravitated to him every time because he was so friendly, and that really helped me because I had no clue what I was even doing, but a sponsor for me at that point, I just knew it was somebody that was going to try to help you. And I didn't really know the actual role at that point.
No, just for my benefit. Are we talking about Chuck, the big guy that's got kind of like the East Coast accents, a little laid back?
Big guy.
Yeah, big guy. Okay.
Hair's really thinning.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, we got the same guy. All right, so
Chuck W.
Yeah. Okay, good. So expectations of a sponsor from your Foxhole, what are your expectations of a sponsor? Not necessarily of Charlie as a person, but as a sponsor as a type.
Expectation. I would just say it's someone that I expect to do what they say, and I expect them to live what they're trying to help me with, and I expect that, as an alcoholic, I have a lot of expectations of other people, but as far as a sponsor, I just, and for someone to help me, I know that I expect them to be honest and, someone that's doing it, they're living it by example. That's the short version, living by example. And that's, the two sponsors that I've had, very shortly with Chuck, but with Charlie, I've known Charlie almost 2 months, and I just see it in everything he does. I know him in the business world too, and he's the same way no matter where you see him. And I respect that a lot. So that's what I expect from a sponsor, and that's why I enjoy being around Charlie.
Good answer. And now back to you, Charlie. You have expectations, but by the way, the joke in our recovery journey is expectations are
premeditation, resentment.
Yeah. So, but expectations of a sponsee, if I can just call it that, or you can relabel it, it doesn't matter to me. But what does that look like to you in your journey working with an individual?
Probably the only real expectation that I have, or let me say requirement that I want to see out of a sponsee is honesty. I believe this is an honesty-based program that I believe that God will work in my life when I'm being honest. He'll not work in my life if I'm being dishonest. Everything stems from honesty. After that, we're human and we're bound to make mistakes. And I'm bound to be dishonest at times. That's a part of being human. But today, when I'm dishonest, I do my best to try to make it right after I've done it. And if somebody's dishonest with me, I'm not going to throw them under the bus. We don't shoot our wounded. We just pick ourselves up, try to do better the next time.
Good. So, according to the Big Book, we want to get somebody through the 12 steps in less than 3 months. True or false? No, it's a bad question. What are your thoughts about time hacks on the steps? Am I saying that where it makes any sense?
I think I get the gist of what you're saying. That's one of the reasons why I think today I try to work steps in a timely manner. Like I say, not procrastinate. I'm not going to put a time frame on it. It's just, how does that relationship, how does that step work with that particular sponsee work? I don't want to rush them, but I also don't want to procrastinate. Quick little story. I was sponsoring a guy one time, struggling with the honesty part, and he was just struggling alcoholism as a whole, and obviously had some mental problems with himself, about himself. I think really try to say it the way I'm feeling it. Okay. Had a lot of self-hate, a lot of low self-esteem. Anyway, one day he calls me, it was late he didn't call me. He texted me, and his text said, "I'm still breathing." And I replied back, "That's a good thing." He wasn't calling me on a daily basis or anything, but he was calling me a sponsor. But he sent me that text. I replied back. Next morning, I found out he shot himself. And so that brought a sense of urgency to me with the next person that I sponsored, that we've got to go to work. Don't need to sit on our tail ends, hope that this thing magically happens. Have to participate in our sobriety. It takes a lot of work. I've sponsored 2 people in this program that I'm just going to say they died from alcohol. One put a gun to his head, and the other put the bottle to his head.
Yeah. Those those hurt. I can identify with that. From a sponsor's point of view, it's not really. I'm not really phrasing this question right. Have you, working with a sponsee, learned stuff about the program, about yourself, whatever that in itself? Did you learn something by working with a sponsee?
Of course, you always learn from sponsees. I think I learned more about myself in working with the sponsee. I think I learned a lot in the rooms about how to stay sober and just all the different things that we hear in the rooms. But when I'm working directly with the sponsee, I think I learn a lot more about myself. I can see my character defects in them. And also when you're working, they just come to the surface whenever you're working with somebody. Not just necessarily through their character defects, but, I know if I'm trying to tell Nathan to be a certain way, I have to be willing to be that way as well.
Why sponsor at all? Why do it?
That's an easy one, because it was given to me. That's my debt, AA, and to my sobriety and to life, okay? I've got to give what was freely given to me if I want to maintain what I have.
Okay. And that's a great answer. It was a rhetorical question for the most part, but I wanted to hear it myself. And I think the audience needed to hear that as well. So let's move on to the topic of higher power. This is not a Christian podcast, even though many of us on here share the same higher power. We by no stretch push Jesus on anybody. It would just, I've had people on the show that are not Christians. I couldn't honestly care less. That's not what the program is about. It's a spiritual program. So from that perspective, when you're working with a sponsee and you're obviously, full disclosure, I know you're a Christian because you invited me to that Thursday morning breakfast, which was awesome, by the way. Thank you very much for that. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. What are your thoughts about working with somebody that doesn't recognize Christ as their higher power?
I heard a speaker say one time that God is AA approved, but his son is not. And I thought that was pretty funny, and I liked it. But from the standpoint of your question, I've tried to sponsor people recently in the past few years where I really was seeking my relationship with Christ to the degree I am today, and they were turned off by it, and that's okay too. I just have to be honest with you. If they were turned off by it, then in my opinion, that's God's will for us at that point. And found another sponsee. We're still great friends. We talk. We love each other still to this day. This wasn't a good fit. There was a time that if someone would have been a devout Christian, maybe they weren't the right sponsor for me. My first sponsor is not a Christian, and he was the right person. Had he been a holy roller, he may not have been a good fit for me at that time, because when I got into this program, I wasn't a devout Christian. I was, I believed in God like so many of us, and I loved the idea of Christianity, but that wasn't me at that time. I had to grow into this where I am. It was just a few years ago that I got on my knees again, and I just said, Jesus, if you exist, please reveal yourself to me. Since that day, he has been revealing himself to me more and more. I'll say this. It's probably just been within the past maybe 6 months or less that I have found this freedom that I didn't have. I heard somebody say one time, and I can relate to it very strongly. We'll often ask, what does Jesus do for you? What has he done for you? Or, for me in my life today, it's not so much what he's done for me or what he's given me, what he's taken away from me. Taken away low self-esteem, self-hate. Live your life for as many years as I did, criticizing myself as much as I have done, and being hard on myself. If anybody ever treated me the way I treat myself, I'd kill them.
So true. So true.
Not doing that today. I'm so grateful. And even when Nathan was sharing a while ago, some of the things he said about me, it almost brought me to tears. I was welling up. I was losing my breath, okay? Because I'm grateful that he has these things to say about me. I'm grateful for the person I am today. And finally, today, I believe that about myself. For many years, people my whole life have told me what a good guy I was. I didn't believe it. Today, I know I. But I don't do it from a standpoint of ego or pride. I do it because I believe that this is what God has done for me, and it's the man he's made me today, and I'm grateful for it.
That's great. I had an awkward perception of Christ when I came in the program. So I think I'm fortunate that my first sponsor was not a Christian. So I can totally identify with what you said. And when I made my conversion, or however it's called, when I accepted that, Christ was my higher power, it didn't go well with my sponsor. In fact, his response, which is not really relevant to the show here, kind of threw me for a loop and made me feel insecure all over again. And that was good for me, because I have sponsored people that don't identify with Christ, and I'm just like, that's totally cool. And they're their reaction to me is like, really? I'm like, yeah, I have learned that my job is to get you through the 12 steps. But I will tell you this, if you don't have something out there that you identify as bigger than you're really going to have a hard time with this program, because you can't fix the stuff in your head with the stuff that's in your head. And so, I've been fired as a sponsor. I didn't lose any sleep. But, well, I'd say in the beginning, when I was sponsoring and that happened, I kind of took it personally. But that taught me a lot again about myself, that, so it's my will and not your will. So the maturity in our journey has really been good for me. And I asked you, how sponsorship has helped you. I can see that we have similar answers, that it's helped to actually make me a better person and more, our on our show, it says love and tolerance is our code. Obviously, we didn't make that up. We took that out of the literature, but that is our mantra for the show, besides the fact that you are not alone, right? And so flipping the switch here back to you, Nathan, you accept your higher power is essentially the same as Charlie's. Now, does that help you guys get through the steps, working the steps together? How's that, having the same higher power in this case?
So, me personally, I feel that you need to be of equally, not to get religious, but the Bible even says it, to be equally yoked, And so if I feel like I'm not the same as someone else and they're just totally opposite of me, yes, we can relate on some things, It's like kind of like working with someone at your work. You see them at work, but this is very personal, this program, and especially being a sponsee and a sponsor, So for me to relate and to be able to gain what I'm trying to reach, I think it really, really helps to be equally yoked, as far as both being Christians, both believing in God, and so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like I need that in my sobriety, to have someone of the same process.
I was just curious. Trust me when I tell you, you're going to run into folks that cannot identify, and it's just good for us to go back to the basics of Alcoholics Anonymous and remember that love and tolerance is our code. Man, I'm by no stretch of the imagination, and Charlie, I'm sure I can lightly speak for both of us. Our job is not to convert anybody. It's to help them get a quality of life through the steps. And wherever their journey takes them, it takes them, right? So, motivation. What is Nathan's motivation to stay the course of Alcoholics Anonymous?
And everything. I have everything to lose at this point in my life. I mean, I haven't lost everything. And I see that a lot in coming to the meetings and seeing and being around all the stories you hear. I hear so many things, and I'm not talking about financially or materialistic things. I'm talking about your family, your freedom, your life, so for me to stay the course, I've seen that. I've been through one marriage, I wouldn't directly correlate that to alcoholism, which that was a contributing factor at that point in my life. Staying the course for me to be able to live, to see, I'm 33, to see 34, to see 60 or whenever God takes me, to be able to live on this earth and be a productive member of society and to help someone else. I'm so tired of me. That's why I felt, when I reached out to Charlie that day, I was like, why? Once again, it's all about me today. Just putting that drink in your body, like he says, it's like an obsession. And that's, I was just obsessing over it, and I would just do it over and again and hate that I was doing it. And so for me to stay the course today, this moment, is just thinking about those things in my life that God has given me, and I've taken it for granted for so long, and I'm tired of doing that. I'm tired of taking every single day for granted. I've wasted so many years. I'm only 33, but to me, I feel like I've wasted my, most of my life doing those things, and I'm tired of it. I want to live for the Lord and live in sobriety and raise my family, and I have a small business now and try to make that successful too. But do it for God. Do it for the right reasons, not the wrong reasons, and do it for me, for selfish reasons, just so everybody can look at me. I'm tired of looking at me. I want to look at helping someone else eventually, but I've got to get me fixed right now. And that's what we're trying to do. That's why I'm in this program. And, so yeah, I know I'm starting to ramble now, but that's where I'm at. I've got to stop focusing on me, and for me to stay the course, I've got to kind of do a 180 and quit looking in that mirror and look at what else I can do to help others. And as Charlie says, go out in the world and try to be of service to someone today. And, that'll keep me sober. So,
okay. Just not that you haven't heard this before, but God never wastes a hurt. Everything that we've been through and the wreckage of our past that you had mentioned earlier, it used to bother me immensely until I had people like Charlie come into my life and say, all of those things are called lessons learned, so you can identify with the next poor guy out there that's trying to get on this journey, and you can identify with them. So, look at it that way. And that's kind of what I do today. I don't focus on any of that. Now, they do flash in my head. And right away, I'm just like in my heart, like, God, I wish I hadn't have done that, and God's like, hey, dude, we already talked about this. You're good to go. Okay. So pull up your big boy pants and get out there and be the man of God I want you to be. Roger that. Good at taking orders. Spent a lot of years in the Army. So let's ask you another question here. You hear the term tools thrown out quite a bit, right? So what are some of the tools that you've learned in the short time that you've been on this journey? What would you, Nathan, call as a tool, and how does that tool help you?
As far as tools, as far as in AA, I would say having a sponsor is your best tool. I mean, because right now, in the young part of my sobriety, I don't really know what I'm doing. So you have to. It's like almost like a child. You have to have that parent to kind of guide you, and so that's really my biggest thing right now is just learning to do what is asked of me right now, which, I'm a knucklehead, so I have to learn the hard way a lot of times. And, just listen to what my sponsor tells me to do right now and do what he says and try to be available. I'll try to help when I can, as far as during the AA, when we sign up for these things to go do and try to be of service to people, and not make excuses. Because I'm really good at that. I'm good at making excuses why I can't do something or why I'm busy, and then reaching out to the Lord, and saying prayers and actually meaning it, and then like Charlie said, just going and saying your prayer, but also doing the action after, because you can sit there and mouth and give lip service to God, but if you don't go and actually do the action that you're praying for, it's not going to come to pass. You mentioned it earlier, faith without works is dead. You can believe all day that's just going to work, but if you don't go and actually put it to action that day, when you kneel down that morning and say your prayers, and you go out and just totally turn away from what you were praying about, then it's not gonna be good. So I would say the tools are in early sobriety, as of less than 3 months of sobriety. Get with your sponsor, and he'll help you with the tools. He's got the tools. It's kind of like me. In our trade, you have a senior technician and you have a helper. The helper knows nothing. He has to be told everything to do. That senior is there for a reason, because he's been through it. He's got the knowledge. He's got the tools. He'll teach you how to use the tools. And right now, Charlie's my senior technician, and I'm learning, and it's going to take some time.
Yeah, that's a great parallel. Yeah, I concur with that. You had said something on the action. Charlie and I are familiar with Joe McHugh. I don't know if you have heard that name. A great mentor. Of course, he's passed now, but he's a great mentor in the recovery journey. He's got a lot of great things. But he's got a book out called The Steps We Took, and he tells a little story in there that you guys might have heard before, and I had actually. And so it's like the 3 frogs that are on the log, and one of them, makes a decision to jump. So how many frogs are left on the log? How many frogs are left on the log? That is the standard answer. But actually, how many are left?
3.
Why?
They made a decision. Didn't take the act.
Yeah. So and you kind of hit on that earlier, and it made me think of that. And you were very, very, very articulate on it. We make decisions, but until, like you quoted Charlie, until we put these things into action, they actually mean nothing. So you mentioned a few. Just the way I heard you say it. Obviously, tools include your sponsor. You, without saying service work, you did say service work. How do you say service work without saying it? Well, go out and do stuff for other people. And then you mentioned prayers, huge. And then finally the action. So well said, all of that. Thoughts?
Talk about tools. I think my most used tool today, surrender. I've got to quit trying to do my way on my own. Anytime I surrender my situation to God and ask someone else to help me, it yields me results far greater than anything I can come up with on my own. I've got to put myself and my pride and my ego aside and not be afraid to ask for help. So I'm going to go into a little story here. What I learned in this program as far as helping others or asking for help. I used to be the type of person that would do anything for you anytime you asked. Needed my help, you ask me, and I'm there. I got you. But I wouldn't allow other people to do the same thing for me. Someone would call or want to try to help me, and I would be like, I appreciate the thought and everything, but I got this. I'm Charlie Newth. I can handle these things on my own, but I appreciate you, but I carry on with my life. What I learned one time, it was revealed to me, is that I know that if I help, that God is going to bless me somewhere, somehow for helping one of his children. But if I deny you the opportunity to help me, I am denying you your blessings. And when I looked at it like that, no longer did I tell people that I didn't need their help. If they offer help, that means they want to help me. Let them help me. Let them receive their blessings just the way I want to receive mine.
Yeah, when I got hit by that, our house got hit by that tornado, and I shared with you, Nathan, how those fellows, Tony and Josh, came out and chainsawed. I felt really out of place, but they really wanted to do it, and in hindsight, after that event, not currently, but after that event, I was like, I'm blessed, that people want to do stuff for me today, where at one time in my life, I'd be lucky if they picked up the phone, so it's that's just how we roll in this program, Very good. Very good. Last question for you, Nathan. I know this is an expensive journey, Alcoholics Anonymous being what it is. I mean, just paying your dues to your sponsor alone. How much is he charging you? Really?
Well, you haven't gotten the bill yet.
Wow, you're getting over.
I'll work it off.
Right.
We have talked about what he owes.
Okay. And since we went there, what's that look like?
Just to give it to the next man.
Good answer. Pay it forward, right?
Pay it forward. It's paid.
Amen. Good answer. All right, so we're going to move into a wrap up here. This is like a free flow. Thoughts that you that might have crossed your mind earlier, and maybe you didn't think it was timing to jump in. Are there any, Nathan? I'm gonna start with you. Are there anything, or is there anything that you would like to, say freely to the listening audience? Whatever's on your heart.
The only thing I'll say, and I'll let Charlie close this out, is that for the alcoholic, you have to learn your I don't know how to say it. I guess your threshold of pain, and to quit, you have to want to. You have to actually want it, and not just come in and just give lip service. And because there's a lot of sponsees I know of that come in and do that. They'll come in and just have false pretenses, and they try to get a sponsor, and just, I don't know if it's what they're trying to do, if they're trying to just do it for their family or something, but you have to do it for yourself ultimately. If you're doing it for someone else, if you're coming into sobriety, trying to get sober for your kids or your wife or whoever, your boss is about to fire you, you're going to go back and get drunk again. You're going to end up back into it again, because it's never going to stick. You've got to get that, and I'm very young in it, and I'm not saying I won't ever screw up or nothing would, but this day, right now in this moment, April 24th on a Thursday, I know right now that I've got to do everything I can do today to stay sober, but I've got to want it myself, not for someone else. And, and that's what I'll just keep repeating every day. It's like the movie Groundhog Day. I just keep waking up and doing the same thing again, knowing that I've got to do this to make it happen tomorrow, and just don't worry about the next day yet. Just get through this moment, 1 minute at a time, one moment. And I like the Serenity Prayer, how it says that, the things I can change, and learning to live with what I've done. But, I can only do what I can do today. And for someone new in sobriety, get you a sponsor and work the steps, but live for today, and you've got to want it, man. You've got to want it. If you really don't, you're not going to do it. That's all I got. So thank you.
What's the question again?
It's free flow. So thoughts that were on your mind that, we're closing out now. So we've got a listening audience, and you might have thought of things earlier that maybe the timing wasn't right to inject it. But now it's just like, boom, what is your heart telling you that you would like to leave with the listening audience?
Well, we were talking about something earlier about Nathan's motivation to stay with the program. I think my motivation ultimately, one of the reasons is that I don't want to go back to that life that I ever again. I'm so grateful for the life that I have today. The other motivation that predominantly in my mindset today and in my life, just to be able to help as and my time left here on this earth. And so I know I have to stay sober in order to do that. And I know I have to keep growing spiritually with God. What he's taught me, the longer I work on relationship with, the happier I get, more people I get to help. It's kind of revealed to me recently. My wife has put together this little thing from church where they get together one Saturday of month and they're reading this book together. I thought, man, what better way so it's all people from the church and they're coming to our house or we're going to their house and I'm getting to know these people. So it kind of occurred to me, what better way to get to know God than to get to know his children, play with his kids. And that's kind of what we do in AA as well. Develop this fellowship around us. And we're developing relationships with these people. And we're learning more about who God is as a result of it. Ultimately, if there's one thing I can hope to leave the podcast with, is to offer someone else a little bit of hope. That your life, you continue to work this program to the best of your ability, it's going to get better beyond anything that you can imagine. As it was expressed to me early on, I could sit down my first week of sobriety or my first month, whenever. I could do it today, as a matter of fact. And I could write down a list of the greatest desires I have in life. And if I keep working this program, best of my ability, somewhere down the road, I will look back at that list and I'll be like, that's all I asked for.
Yeah.
Because my sponsor used to always tell me, you have no idea how good your life can get. And I thought, man, at a year span, I'm like, how can it get any better than this? I couldn't understand it. I can look back at my life today or look at my life today from where I was back in 2010 when I was in a straitjacket. And it almost brings me to tears to think of where I was and how far I know that if I keep somewhere down the road, I'll be able to look back at today and I'll just amazed how far I've made it from where I am. I firmly believe. So, I just hope, first of all, that you're out there who, or even if you've been in the program, just keep coming back. Life will get better. Your life's going to change. You're going to change. For me, I'm going to touch on this a little bit because I know so many people in the program suffer from the same thing I've been suffering from for years in this program. I didn't have my first bout of depression until I was 2 years sober. And I'm at the golf tournament, Wolf Street Golf Tournament, and there's probably 75 people there. And I know and love every one of those people. They know and love me, and I cannot stand it. And I did my service responsibilities for that tournament. And I'm in the clubhouse, and I'm kind of hiding behind this pillar over there. Anyway, watching the side door, looking for my opportunity to go out, to run out. I didn't want anybody to see me around all these people, and I cannot stand. My skin's crawling. Finally, the opportunity hits me, and I hit the door, and I run out, and I get in my car, and I close the door, and I just take a deep breath. And I get it's you.
It's who?
Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, hey, man, what's wrong? I don't know, but I got to get. I left that day. When I knew I needed to start looking, I spent the next 11 and a half years. Freedom that I have found today is brand new. Less than 6. I know, not a shadow of it, I don't have to treat myself. But for 11 years, I sought ways to overcome that. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe I was trying to do it on my own. Maybe I wasn't surrendering. Maybe I wasn't asking I know I wasn't. I was asking other people for help. I was seeking psychologists, psychiatrists, rooms of AA. I'm sharing my problems with people just in hopes that I can overcome my own. because I do believe that if I share my problems with you, it loses some of its power. And that's the beginning of the journey.
Preach it.
Maybe I believe this today, that God allowed me to live like that so long that I can use that example, share with the next man who's going through the same thing, give him hope, because he can see me today. He said, man, he overcome. Just what I want to do. I want to help anybody that I can. My prayers and my wife's prayers every night, God, bring the need your help to our lives, and let us be the channel your love flows to them so that we can help them you want us to help. Pray that every night. It's people in there.
That's a great prayer.
Thanks for having us here, Bob. Thanks for the opportunity to share it with you. Let's hope it helps somebody.
Amen. It's got to be refreshing to know, the old adage, the first thing that is mentioned after your name is spoken is entirely up to you. And Charlie, whenever your name comes up, because we talk about people, that's what we do. People talk about people. But whenever your name comes up, it's always good. All the service work that you do, the Soberfest, the golf. I remember when I got involved a few years ago, I had conflicts with the actual event. Couldn't go to that, but I volunteered to go help. And you were all over the place. In fact, you brought me an energy drink. I remember that because I was dying from that day. I was already swamped, and you popped out that energy drink, and I was like, God blessing you. So, last thing, periodically people will reach out and go, hey, can I pen pal or dialogue? Should that happen where somebody, because on shoutoutfromthepit.com, we can be reached via an unmonitored phone number. In fact, I'll throw that number out now if somebody's listening to this. And I always return calls. It's area code 501-613-8915. Again, it's not monitored, but I listen to it regularly just to see if there's any messages of something like this where somebody needs to reach out. They have a topic they want to talk, maybe come on the show. Or we can be emailed to at team@shoutoutfromthepit.com. And the two people that monitor these, of course, is my partner, Redbeard. He's, like I've mentioned to you earlier, Nathan, he's the brains behind the show and the mouth. And then there's also, on the actual website, shoutoutfromthepit.com, there is a message board that people can leave a message at. So I say all that because for the show purposes, if you have a resource, folks, or you want to talk to somebody, or you might even want to come on the show. Again, we're not just about recovery with alcohol. It's all walks of life. Doesn't matter what it is. If you have a topic and you have a program that you're working to overcome that, I'd love to have you on the show. So just give me a shout out on that, myself or Redbeard. But if you want to talk to Charlie, I'm putting you on the spot. If somebody says, hey, I'd like to be introduced to Charlie, are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay, obviously I'll vet the call, vet the contact, and then I would provide that information to you so you can reach out to the individual. Because, we've got grifters in the world, and I don't have any time for that. I'll hang up on them in a heartbeat. Okay, so good. I'm going to commit that to the show, and then I'll make that happen. Okay, so any closing thoughts? Or you guys, anything you want to add? Okay. All right, folks. Well, then that's obviously it. And Charlie, again, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, so thanks for coming on. Nathan, thank you so much for your share. Do want to have you on the show again, like when we do table chats and stuff like that. If you want to come and just join the tribe and just chime in, you listen to the show, you hear those things can be really goofy. They're fun, But again, it's always about carrying a message because we want people to know that Yana, you are not alone, and this is just a great opportunity for us to share our voices and like you said, so profoundly, we want to help people. We truly do care. So again, this is Bob, the old rucker. Almost forgot who I am, and that comes with age. Folks, I thank you for listening, and I would ask that you share our show with folks that could use some encouragement, some extra tools for their recovery journey. And it wouldn't be me if I didn't say it, but remember, you're not alone. And if no one's told you they love you today, we love you. So God bless you and have an outstanding recovery day. Peace out.